The first conditional sentence would be, if you have an accident, that's the future, you'll have to stop work. Look at the third example. If you stop work, you'll have no protection for the family. The fourth example, if you go to hospital, there'll be no cover for hospital fees. So you see, you have a situation and then the consequence. The last example, let's change the situation, no longer an accident, but still related to insurance. If you have a house fire, you'll have no cover for lost items. So here we see a situation and the consequence. Okay? So we use, these are real possibilities. We use the first conditional. Now let's look at the second conditional. Now, I want to give you some examples and ask you the question, what would you do if? And these are situations that maybe you will never find yourself in. They're a bit improbable, but you like to hypothesize about them. So we use the second conditional. I ask you, what would you do if your company offered you a job in China for 5 years? And you think, my God, China for 5 years, interesting. Well, I'd accept it. I would accept it. Now, the grammatical form of the second conditional is if followed by the past tense, followed by would and the conditional. All right, let me ask you another question. What would you do if a Japanese businessman gave you his business card like this? What would you do? Well, if a Japanese businessman gave me his business card like this, I would accept it with 2 hands and bow a little. Then I would read it carefully and put it in a special place to show respect. Okay? What would you do? I would do that. Okay, next one. Number 3, what would you do if you lost all your money and all your credit cards? What would you do? I would phone the bank immediately if I lost, simple past, if I lost all my money and credit cards, wouldn't you? Last one. What would you do if you had a first meeting with an Arab businessman? What would you do? Well, I wouldn't talk business until he decided to talk business himself. I would let him decide to open business conversations. All right? So there are some examples of the first and the second conditional forms in English, used a little bit in the business context. All right? So that's all for now, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. Bye.
Yes, Mr. Jones. The collection is divided into thematic volumes. Your volume will be the first, dealing with starters. That's right. Yes, recipes should be written clearly and precisely. Well, I'm not sure I agree with you there. Ingredients should be written separately, directly under the title of each dish. Okay, I'll expect your first instalment next week then. All right, goodbye, Mr. Jones. Goodbye. Excuse me, Gary. Has Mr. Bradford got in touch yet? Gary? Hello? I asked you a question. Could you answer, please?
What's up, Anne? I'm sorry, I'm writing the contracts to send out to the authors.
Have you spoken to Mr. Bradford yet?
No. Could you give him a call? I'm really very busy at the moment.
Okay. Could you at least tell me where you are with him? Has he sent us the materials? Gary? Hello, Gary?
What?
Please, can you tell me what is so entertaining about drawing up contracts?
Why?
Because you're glued to your computer and you keep laughing like a fool.
I'm just in a good mood today.
Come on, Gary. I'm not stupid. What are you doing?
Okay, you've caught me out. I'm chatting. It's great fun. Would you like to give it a try?
No, thank you very much. And you shouldn't be chatting at work anyway. Mr. Stevens might notice.
Now, why would he? If he walks in the door, I'll just close the window and continue typing up the contracts. Anne, relax. Let's chat a bit together.
No, I'm afraid I can't. Somebody needs to work around here. Now, could you explain how I should proceed with this? You spoke to Mr. Bradford, so could you give me some details on your agreement?
Yes, he should have sent some materials in 2 days ago, but we still haven't received anything yet. Give him a call and see where he's at with those.
Hello, Mr. Bradford. This is Anne Baxter from Pilgrim Publishing. Hello. We are still waiting for the materials you should have sent us 2 days ago. I just wanted to know if you were having problem. Well, what does the index have to do with it? I'm afraid I don't understand. No, it's just I wasn't aware that... No, I don't think... What, could you just hold on a second?
Hey, Mark, this is Gary. No, don't worry. Everything's just fine. Anne just didn't know. Have you finished the index then? Okay, great. We'll expect your email then. Okay. Bye, Mark.
I hate you, Gary. If you spent a little time filling me in instead of chatting on your computer, I might just know what's going on around here.
What?
Ooh!
Mrs. Lee, excuse me for disturbing, but I need to speak to you for a moment.
You're not disturbing, Mr. Chang. What can I do for you?
Perhaps it's none of my business, but considering the importance of the deal for you and your company, I want to be absolutely sure that everything goes smoothly and that no ugly surprises are around the corner.
I don't understand, Mr. Chang. What are you getting at?
You see, Victoria, I value you highly and trust in you, but I don't like people going behind my back.
What are you insinuating, Mr. Chang?
Victoria, I know very well the woman who visited you in your office yesterday, Mrs. Baker, Human Resources Director for Play, the world's largest sporting goods chain.
And?
Mrs. Baker is well known as a headhunter. You know, those personnel managers who rob other companies of their own talents to employ for their own companies. So tell me, Victoria, what did Mrs. Baker want from you?
You're right. Mrs. Baker made me a very interesting offer, but I certainly have no intention of accepting.
Are you quite sure, Victoria?
Look, Mr. Chang, I had an interview with Mrs. Baker last year. At the time, I was working for Spectre, but I was very unhappy. I had been hired to work in the business office and had expected more important assignments. But unfortunately, my work was very monotonous and boring, nothing that met my expectations. So I sent a CV to Play, they contacted me for an interview, but there weren't any positions open at the time. Therefore, I stayed at Spectre. And there's another thing, Mr. Chang. I have a dream. I've always wanted to work in a publishing house ever since I was a teenager. And that's also why I wanted to leave this job. Numbers just don't go with my creativity.
And what about now, Victoria? Do you still doubt about your job? And what about your expectations?
Well, now things are different. I've taken on a role with more responsibilities and I'm working on important projects like this one. It's been a double victory for me. Not many women have such prestigious positions and I'm quite proud of that. I finally have the chance to demonstrate all my abilities and I have no intention to renounce that. You have to believe me, Mr. Chang. I have no intention whatsoever of betraying my company.
I believe you, Victoria. I certainly appreciate your sincerity. You're quite a capable young woman. And I'm certainly very pleased to have solved this little misunderstanding.
Do you remember how Anne said in the first scene, I don't agree? Now, in English, we say I don't agree. We don't say I'm not agree, as in many other languages. I don't agree. That's one way of disagreeing. And do you remember how Victoria said in the second scene, she said, I don't understand what you're getting at. Now, that's one way of asking for clarification. So I'd like to look at this language with you now. Now, if I say something like this, I say, let's look at the screen. I say, I think we should increase our investment in management training. Now, this is something I could say in a meeting. I think we should increase our investment in management training. Now, sometimes after saying something like that, you want to explain it a little bit more. And there are phrases we can use in order to do further explanation. For example, I could say, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think we spend enough money on training. So what I'm trying to say is... Now, another possibility is, what I mean is... And one more is, the point I'm making is... So it becomes, I think we should invest more money in management training. The point I'm making is our company just doesn't do enough training. All right, so that's explaining a point. Now, what about clarifying? I say that to somebody, and then I want to check that they've understood. So I could say, is that clear? Is that clear? Or do you understand what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? Then, in the audience or in the meeting, if they're not quite sure, they can ask you for clarification. And different ways of asking clarification are these. For example, you could say, I don't quite follow you. I don't quite follow you. Follow, the verb follow, one possibility. Or, well, what exactly do you mean? What exactly do you mean? Or, I don't see what you mean. Notice that we use also verbs of sight. I don't see what you mean. Or could I have some more details? Could I have some more details? Or what are you getting at? Now that's slightly more complicated. Get at means what are you suggesting? What are you insinuating? All right, so these are ways of asking for clarification. Now, very often in a meeting, you want to be able to agree or to disagree. Now, ways of agreeing, I say, for example, I think we should invest more in management training. And you say, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Notice we don't say, I am agree with you, but I agree with you. You can say, yep, I see what you mean. You can say, I see your point. I see your point. And you can say also, yes, I agree up to a point, which means not completely, but mostly yes. Now, maybe you want to do the opposite. So I say, I think we should invest more in management training. And you disagree. You can say, yeah, I see your point, but I think we should invest more in marketing. Or you can say, I'm afraid I can't agree with you. I can't agree with you. Or you could say, are you sure about that? Which is more indirect. All right? Then the other thing is giving an opinion. Giving an opinion, well, different ways of doing that are, number one, in my view, you notice in my view, we're using verbs of sight. That's interesting, yeah? In my view, I think we should invest more money. Or you could ask a question. Don't you think we should invest more money in training? Or you could say, I think it would be a good idea to invest more. So that's you giving your opinion, your idea. Then obviously it's important to create an atmosphere of sharing ideas, so you want to ask other people about their opinions. So you could say, for example, what do you reckon? Reckon is another verb we use in English for think. What do you reckon? Or what do you think about that? What do you think about that? What's your opinion? All right, so these are very important things. It's explaining, clarifying, agreeing, disagreeing, giving opinions, asking opinions. Very important. You use the language every day. All right, so that's the language for this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next. Bye.